Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone here to our webinar series, and particularly like to welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. John Newton, Principal of Scotch College, as well as Professor Yin-Chen, the Provost Chancellor in the Global Development with Western Sydney University. So I'd like to thank both of you for your time in joining our discussion today. And the Australian Grammar School, AGS Vietnam, we've been working in strategic partnership with Scotch College and SACE International. We have the shared vision of bringing into Vietnam a SACE curriculum which offers an excellent academic quality and an international degree with a flexible pathway to universities around the world. In our conversation today, Dr. John Newton and Professor Yin-Chen Lan will share to the Vietnamese parents and students about both the private and public schools in Australia. So I'd like to first start by letting both of you introduce yourself and your roles within your organization. Dr. John Newton, if you can spend a minute to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Douglas. My name is John Newton. I've been a headmaster in the UK for 10 years, and I've spent nearly 7 years as a school principal here in Australia. So I'm British, but I've had access and experience of both systems, both in terms of the United Kingdom of A-levels and GCSEs, but also I introduced the International Baccalaureate in my last school, and I've had the pleasure of encountering the SACE qualifications here. So I can speak on quite a broad spectrum in terms of what these various systems do and how they'll be effective for the young people whose parents we're speaking to today.
Great. And Professor Yin-Chen Lan, you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Douglas. I'm Yin-Chen Lan. I'm Vice Chancellor Global Development and Provost of Vietnam campus at Western Sydney University. So Western Sydney University is one of the public universities in Australia, and has a very large number of students studying in the university. We are currently around 50,000 students. And in Vietnam, we do work very closely with International School of Business at the University of Economics, Ho Chi Minh City, for more than 13 years. At the moment, we have about over 1,000 students studying in Vietnamese students studying in our Vietnam campus through this cooperation, and a number of discipline areas, including business, communication, data sciences, and we are also working on education as well as technology-related programs. So I'm very pleased to be part of today's webinar series. Thank you very much, Douglas.
Okay, thank you both. So to start the conversation, I'd like to first direct a question to Dr. Newton. And basically, in a Australia context of private school systems, if you can give us some characteristics of what an Australian private school system looks like.
Absolutely. I think it's, first of all, important to say that the private school system in Australia is of great long standing and has been effective for students for many generations. We have very specific characteristics, such as smaller classes, which are known for delivering a better education for students. Why do we think that? Why do we think that the fact that we have smaller classes means that our students perform better? It's because we believe in knowing our students well. We are very close-knit communities as private schools. We have very strong principles which tie us together and glue us together, and we have a very strong unity of purpose because of our foundation, because of our reputations, because of our high performance and our wish to continue to perform in a high way. It means that we are very rigorous in what we do for each individual student, because they all count towards the success and reputation of our school. The fact that parents are paying for this education creates a very strong imperative and demand on us to be the very best we can be for every single one. We don't see our students as as simply statistics. We see ourselves as organisms, not mechanisms. We see, therefore, ourselves as creating the very best circumstances for these students to succeed. So I am a school principal. What is my job? People often ask, my children in particular do wonder what I do all day. And I make it very clear to them that I have a very simple role. It is to create the circumstances in this school where we have high expectations, we have high ambition, and I make it possible for the staff to support the students to achieve those high expectations for each individual one, because that is the way we have been charged to do so by the parents. That is the way I operate as a school principal. And also that's the way I operated as a parent. I've also had 4 children go through independent schools or private schools in both the UK and Australia. And I can very much testify to the strengths of both systems, that they both have very high results. They both prepare students for a global professional lives, which will be highly impactful wherever they go. We all believe in the wider skills that young people need in order to be successful professionals and great citizens and great people. And we also absolutely fundamentally have a responsibility to the individual so that they do succeed. I think those are just some of the many ways in which we are distinctive and which we do better than possibly in other circumstances. It doesn't mean to say that public schools don't do a fine job, because they do. But we enjoy the fact that we can, due to our resource, ensure that we match parental expectation very highly.
Thank you, Dr. Newton. Professor Yin-Chen, you've, besides being a colleague of mine and working within the Vietnamese context in the university, you're also a parent. You have 2 children, one in the university now, and one is going to be going to university very soon.
Well, actually, 2 of them are in the university now.
Oh, okay. Good. Yes. Congratulations. And I know that at least one of your child went to a selective school. It's in Australia. And I know that it's a quite highly competitive environment in terms of the academic side, and it really guides them. Could you kind of expand on the system of the selective school in Australia?
Sure. Thanks, Douglas. Yes, I have 2 children, my son and my daughter, and they both are in the university. My son is in the 3rd year university, and my daughter is in the 2nd year. So my son actually went through the selective high schools in New South Wales. So this is, and my daughter is in local public school. So my son, when we talk about selective high schools, basically it's obviously competitive through the entry examination. So in year 6, at the beginning of primary school, year 6, that students are not invited, but have the opportunities to sit for the examination. If you wish to do so, you can submit the applications probably in year 5. Then, generally speaking, they are about 16,000 students sitting for the examination, and about 20% of successful rates going into the selective high schools in New South Wales. We're talking about probably just under 4,000 students get into the selective high school. And that the entry is based on combination of the examination that includes the reading, English reading and writing, comprehension and mathematics and general ability, as well as the school's results. So they combine these two together and have a sort of grading systems that, and based on the demand of selective high schools, then, the school, if the students reach the entry scores of a particular high school, selective high school, then you can get into it. And selective high schools in New South Wales are also divided into two sort of settings. One is 100% full selective high school. So, we're talking about the entire schools, or, the students are going through the examination. And there's also another categories of partially selective high schools. So, for example, if at year 7, they say, for example, 8 classes, they may identify 2 classes as a selective high students going into the examination, through the examination, and going to the classes. So these are the systems we in New South Wales. I'm not sure about other states, but in New South Wales, this is how the selective high school is implemented in the schooling system.
Okay, thank you, Professor Yin-Chen. And Dr. Newton, I would like to get your input and from your experience to compare the public school system and the private school system within Australia.
Yeah, first of all, can I say, I have children the same age as Yin-Chen, but he looks a lot younger than me, which is very impressive, Yin-Chen, I have to say. Because I've got kids who are at university right now. But I was actually a student in the public system in the UK for my primary years, and I have served on the governing council of a public school, primary school, where my children were growing up. And of course, I moved into an independent school when I was 11 years of age, and have worked in independent schools ever since. I think the critical difference is in the word independence. I have a lot more leeway as to what I do as a school principal. I have much more choice. I have much more control. The Australian independent school system generally does not lay down the need for students to be prepared for examinations at 16, as they do in the UK for GCSEs. They go all the way through to 18 before there is an obligation to sit public examinations. It means that not only, therefore, do I have independence because there isn't that looming examination at 16, but also I have the freedom to innovate in the educational experience of young people without having to refer to anybody else but my senior team and my council. As long as we are faithfully and honourably using the resources that parents give to us, I have a lot of latitude in order to have the right education for my community. There isn't this sense of one size fits all. There isn't this sense of having policies and decisions made well above my head and imposed upon me. There's a much more collaborative, creative, and nimble response to education, so I can understand the people who come to my door, and I can give them what I believe is the best preparation for a lifelong success. For example, we are very strong on well-being. We believe that well-being drives performance. If we manage the mental health and well-being of our young people successfully, we have proved to be a school which, unlike in New South Wales, we do not select. And yet we're in the top 4 or 5 schools for academic results in the state. We believe in answering that question differently because we also have rigor, we also have drive, we also have discipline, but we believe the cooperation we get from students due to our well-being programs means that we are successful. That also affects the quality of our performing arts, which we can invest in because we have the resource. And the quality of our sport, which is a very broad program, and we all know how critical sport is for any young person's education and their physical fitness, as well as their mental health fitness for their futures. It means that I can have an outstanding service learning program, an outstanding oratory program. We are in the finals of at least 2 age groups for oratory in the state. Again, and we have the state captain for debating and public speaking here right now. It means that I can do things like next Thursday evening, I can collaborate with 7 other schools around the world and speak with them in terms of a family of schools that we created, that we had the space and the time and the initiative to create in order for us to gain an insight into what's happening in South Africa or South America or in New Hampshire or in Scotland or in India or in Shanghai or in New Zealand. And those 7 schools, we know each other very, very well. Our students know each other very, very well. And I'm able to take that kind of decision and launch that kind of initiative to add value to the academic rigor and performance that we create. It means that all round we produce a long life of success for these young people, because they have the broader skills in which they can succeed. All that comes from giving the school principal the independence and the space to do the right thing by the team, by the culture of the school, by the school's history, its values, and so that we can do the right thing for our students. In the same way that the Australian Grammar School in Vietnam will also do the right thing for its students, the school principal will be able to make the right decisions that are in keeping with the parental aspirations for the young people to succeed both at university and beyond. And that is the joy, and that is the stimulus and the excitement of being in an independent school.
And I personally see, as someone who's been in higher education for over a decade and industry for several decades, that the foundation that students get especially in grammar school and high school, is key in terms of being successful in university. And that's a foundation also for building the career. And I like the key word you said, both the well-being of the student is quite critical, but also the discipline is a very important factor to develop at a young age and implement that all the way even into a higher education. And I think that's what makes and develops careers in the future.
I absolutely agree. And I have this mantra, I have this saying I give at school, which is find your thing and throw everything at it. We will deliver for you something which is very broad. I don't call my school, I kind of have this, I don't call my school a school, I call it a village and a way of life where you can choose the things that will match your strengths. And then you can really push for that success. And that's all part of a student's well-being, is a sense of purpose, what I want to do with my life, where my skills can be best rewarded. And they discover those skills in a school which has a very broad village-like offer. Now, again, in an Australian grammar school context, it's a wonderful thing that we can do in terms of our own experience and our own consultancy, that we can help schools do the right thing in the classroom, do the right thing in the examination results, do the right thing in terms of rigor and discipline, and also help those young people find their own direction in life. Yin-Chen, you're probably the same as me. It's a great moment when your children decide what they're going to do with their lives. When
Absolutely.
When they own it, when it's in their hearts, when it's in their souls, and when they say, this is what I'm going to do, and they start to deliver on the things they say. Now, my children have done the same thing, and that's a very big moment. And independent schools are there to make sure the offering is so specific that children have every chance of finding what they want to do with their lives.
And Professor Yin-Chen, you have 2 children that went through both a selective school and a public school within Australia, and also your experience of many decades in higher education. Taking off of what Dr. Newton said about developing that atmosphere of the village and of giving the students the key elements of what they need to be successful. And also, I think a lot of it is about developing the ethics at a younger age. How do you feel that, how important is that to you as a parent, but also you as in a provost position within a university?
Thanks, Douglas. First of all, I do agree with John about creating the environment that's supporting students. So this is something where private schools can actually provide a lot more than the public school, because, the public schools or even the selective high schools, also a public government funded schools, they obviously in the public boundary. So, it has to be consistent across the board, which, for example, John mentioned about collaborating with schools in other countries and other the joint initiatives, which will probably have less chance for public schools in Australia, which I do appreciate that. So in absolutely that, the disciplines and also the environments that the schools can offer it. In terms of the selective high school perspectives, that obviously the students are selected into based on their academic based on their academic performance. So therefore the environment, when all these kids gathering together, they are like-minded. They understand what they want, and they actually work towards the their future career goals or where they wanted to study at the very early stage in their high school journey. Compared to the general public schools, which pretty much if you are in the catchment area of residence, then the school has to enroll you into the system without any questions, because this is what the public schools is about. So then, there's a variety, wide spectrum of students, from highly talented students to some students which may not be so well equipped with the skills, and so to follow up the education system. So that becomes difficulties for schools, the public schools, to provide consistent resources to bring students to the same level. So that's I guess, it's always been the challenges by the government-funded schools. So, in my experience, that my son's been through the selective high schools, which is government-funded. However, because the gaps amongst the students are pretty much small in relation to the academic performance. However, there is always, a catch, because, the focus is so much into the academic side of it, and there might not be sufficient resources provided to build kids to be a well-rounded person that includes other extracurriculars that been embedded into the programs, the sports activities, and so on. So, and also the community engagement. So these are the things that, of course, the schools, public schools, they do those kind of things, but not obviously as much as the independent schools that can provide, because of the resource constraints.
And I think, one thing that, picking off of what you just said and also what Dr. Newton said, one of our main functions at the Australian Grammar School, AGS Vietnam, is to take from our strategic partner, particularly with Scotch College in Australia, is to take that experience and that knowledge of teaching and building the students, to prepare them for life, to give them the skills, and to focus on that what is taught in Australia and the way it's taught in Australia, it will be implemented the same in Vietnam. Because the key thing, and going back to what Dr. Newton mentioned and Yin-Chen touched on, is we're building global citizens. We're building students that can survive not just within their community, but beyond their community, not just within the boundaries of their country, but beyond that boundaries of the country. And I think that's critical. I think it's the new world and what direction it's going to be in. COVID-19 is although it's difficult within every higher education or grammar school, but it's also teaching us a new way and a new life that we're going to have to do. And that's quite important that we can take that and develop it within Vietnam. And Dr. Newton, I would just like to ask you, what specific, I mean, you mentioned some, but what specific aspects do you think really help develop students, whether it's in Scotch College or in the Australian grammar school in Vietnam? What skills do you think it takes for a student to become that global citizen?
Yeah, it's a deep question, that Douglas, because I answer that question as a British person living in Australia. I answer that question as somebody who speaks French and Russian. That's my academic background. Therefore, someone who's understood different cultures. France, not so different. Russia, very different from where I am. Somebody who has introduced the International Baccalaureate in a school in the United Kingdom, because I believe international mindedness was absolutely critical. Somebody who also made sure that a really formative and sympathetic and positive educational experience was given to our overseas students in the two schools that I've taught in. We really do believe that they add so much colour and richness to a school, and we think that's absolutely vital. Someone who admires Yin-Chen for the way you're bringing up your kids, Yin-Chen, I think it's wonderful that you're giving your children experiences of two cultures, and as you say, Douglas, that capacity is very important. But how do you do that in the school? Well, you do it by creating a real love and regard and celebration for the way other people think. I think that's so important. We can spend our time with people like us a lot, and it's very helpful for students to meet those who are different from themselves, who think differently, who form their sentence, their own purpose in life very differently. I think that's vital. So our young people then move into other circumstances and acts without superiority, without a sense of being right about everything, and are humble before the sophistication and beauty of other ways of doing business, other ways of doing ways of life, of doing communities. I think that's the way we build a better world where people can be more prosperous in a lot of ways, including financially prosperous. I believe that's got to be the future for us. And interestingly, I had a conversation with a student who was from South Korea at one point, and I asked him how his summer holiday had gone, and he said he was finding it quite interesting to be at home and to do the various things that he was doing. And I said, okay, well, tell me, Roger, at what age do you vote in South Korea? And this is in front of a bunch of other students who had thought this was just another student in the school. And Roger said, well, actually, I voted 19 years of age. And I said, well, that's a curious age, Roger. That's a year older than everybody else. He said, no, because in South Korea, when I'm born, I'm 1 year old. Immediately, the people around the table, it was a lunchtime, I was offering at my house for about 12 or 15 students. They were amazed that South Korea thought differently about the age you're born, about the age that you vote. I said, Roger, what floor of the building are we on here? Oh, okay, this is the ground floor. He said, no, we don't do that sort of thing in South Korea. 1, floor 2, floor 3. What's this ground floor nonsense? Why do you add an extra word to a numerical analysis? Doesn't make any sense. And of course, it makes ultimate sense. The Russians do the same thing. The South Koreans say the ground floor is number 1, not naught, whatever strange word we give to it. So that's only a small example, but we need to have young people who have courtesy, who have humility, who have sympathy, who want to learn, who want to celebrate the way other people think. I also think one of the great ways in which schools must do this is to teach not just great thinking so you can pass exams and be knowledgeable in specific areas. We need to teach ethics. We need to teach young people how to think ethically, because you could be the best stockbroker, lawyer, medical person, surgeon, dentist, whatever you want to be. But if you make an ethical error in your career is over. You're finished. Mm-hmm. And unless we have young people who make good ethical decisions professionally and personally, They do not thrive in any professional environment because we have high expectations of our professionals. I've already explained how important I think it is to have good oratorical skills, public speaking skills. This morning, I've just seen a bunch of 11-year-olds speaking to me about well-being issues, and their public speaking skills were outstanding. And they will be the ways in which they will do business in the future, because they will inspire audiences. They will sell products. They will convince juries in court. They will pitch for business. They will do great work because of their oratorical skills. What else they need? Teamwork and leadership. We have a vast array of leadership preparation in this school here, a vast number of opportunities to be a leader and initiator. And aligned to my year 12, which is my senior year in the school, I see them all at breakfast before they become year 12s. And I say a very startling and frightening thing to them. I say, I can't run this school without a great year 12. I can't do it without you. You're important to me. You're part of the team. You're part of the leadership of this organization. You set the tone. You're now responsible for its values and its way of life. In fact, I so trust these year 12s that I have a number of them. Again, I do a lot of lunches and make sure I'm hospitable, because I like to get to know them really well, inspire them in what they do. And we create this relationship of leadership, which enables the students to feel a strong influence over what the school does in the right way. And then the rigor of their learning with those other values of courtesy and ethics, international mindedness, teamwork, leadership, means that we are setting children up not just to get to university, but to be 50-year impact people across the world. And that's the most important task that education does, is to create an evolution in humanity, where a better world will be left behind by these young people because of the complexity and beauty of the education that we've given them.
Thank you. And Dr. Professor Yin-Chen, would you like to comment on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. This, education is a lifelong journey. It is not just for a point in time, during high schools or university. It actually impacts the whole life of a person. So this is very important that we build a foundation. And I would like to just quickly respond to earlier, Douglas, you mentioned about the global skills, global citizens, and so on. And that from the I'm sure the high schools will do the same, but from my experience working with the Vietnam partners in the University of Economics and building up the Vietnam campus for Western Sydney University, the students there, what we wanted to see is an equivalent. Of course, we can't have an identical because of the location is different, the local culture is different. I may have to adjust my curriculum in terms of the case study, the assignments to fit the local needs. However, the underlying principles supposed to be equivalent, the same. So then we create the same experience to the students regardless of their location of study. And later on, the skills, the knowledge they gained from the studies can be mobile. We're talking about moving whether they are in Vietnam, in Australia, or other countries, they can always bring their skills to realize their career endeavors. So this is something I would just want to respond to your comment.
Okay. So this is the conclusion of our webinar series, and I think it's quite valuable, the information that you both share with us, because it gives us the insight of really what the world is today and what the importance that we have to focus on in developing the next generation and the global citizen, and really not just a short-term vision, but a long-term 50-year path, as Dr. Newton said, of developing someone. And I think this is critical. It's critical to start at the foundation, as I mentioned before, and it links into higher education in the university, and it links into a career, and a successful one. And these skills are definitely important. So the information that you shared, both of you, I really appreciate your time. It's been incredibly valuable. And I think that this information really helps parents and also students that are considering to study in Vietnam in the Australian Grammar School and AGS Vietnam, what the expectations they can expect from our school and our staff and our administrators, as well as the environment we set. So thank you both again. I do appreciate that. Your time is quite valuable today. And I would like to hopefully see you again very soon, both of you, and particularly in Vietnam. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Douglas. And thank you,
Douglas.
John.